Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Ollama, and you'll notice that I am in a different setting than normal, and it's because my apartment flooded, so I'm at a hotel. So I figured to make the most of it, and it actually pairs perfectly with the content of this video, which is hosting language models locally. Now, Ollama does this in a very specific way in that they handle pretty much everything. You don't have to set up anything that you don't want to. Everything is pretty much optional. You just decide what model you want to pull, and then it will pull it in, and you can chat with it pretty much immediately. So I've covered briefly hosting local models before, but in that case, we were loading the model on our own manually, and then it would only work for that piece of code. Ollama's server lets you actually query it from multiple different web apps that you might have running locally, or any application at all, really, not just a web app. And it makes it just very, very intuitive. And there's obviously ways that you can tweak it so that you can get OpenAI style API endpoints, so that you can still use your, any apps that you created for OpenAI's API, or even, stuff like AutoGen that depends on OpenAI's API as the default, in order to get all that stuff connected. We'll talk on that a little bit more later, but the idea for Ollama is basically just that: models hosted simply. So back on the computer, we could see that LangChain already has Ollama support. Their definition is actually pretty spot on, where they say Ollama allows you to run open source language models such as Llama 2 locally. Ollama bundles model weights, configuration, and data into a single package defined by a model file, and more on that later. It optimizes setup and configuration details, including GPU usage, and this is a big one. For a complete list of supported models, we can actually go and visit the model library. And the interesting thing for you HTMX fans out there is that the actual model library thing is actually working with HTMX. So if I type not auto thing, active search, it's working with HTMX. So it's very similar to that Rick and Morty example that I sent or that I created for one of the first few videos. And you can see that there's an HX get somewhere on here. HX trigger, key up, change delay to 50 milliseconds. So pretty standard active search implementation. But it's just very interesting to see it out in the wild. You have install shell scripts for Linux. You have no support for Windows, which is unfortunate. But maybe you can do it with WSL2, so Windows Subsystem for Linux, and use it that way. But I don't know exactly how GPU support would work for that, so you might have to look into that. For macOS, it actually works very well, and I don't have it running right now, so I can go ahead and do Ollama. And you can see it's just a regular app, and it'll pop up at the top here somewhere at some point. There's like a little, basically this llama logo pops up there, and that's basically it. You install it, and the server is set up to auto run for you. So after that, it's a terminal situation. So we can open up a terminal here, and I could just say, I already have it installed, so I can go ahead and do Ollama list, and you'll see the models that I have installed right now. So I've been experimenting with a few of the new ones, Tiny Llama, the latest version of Phi. You can see that it's not necessarily the most intuitive way to look at the model, because this says Phi latest. What does that mean? Is it Phi 1? Is it Phi 2? Is it Phi 1.5? And that's where the model library actually comes into play, because if we go back to models and I search Phi, you can see that it says Phi 2. So I would definitely recommend going to the model library first and taking a look at the description and everything that goes into it. And then you can also see the tags, so you can actually pull it in like a Docker style situation. I have it set to latest, and it's just going to grab that. But if you want 2.7, which is the latest, but if you want the chat version, or if somebody created a different version of this that wasn't chat fine-tuned, sometimes some of these models do have those kind of things combined. But you can see that it'll give you a pretty good description as to the different kind of tags, the different versions, if there's anything special that you need to do for prompting it. All that kind of stuff is usually listed in there. And then if we go back to the terminal, we could see that I also have some multimodal models like Baklava. But the idea is that you can have a few different ones. Dolphin is one of the uncensored models, so those are nice to try out and see kind of what the output is. DeepSeek coder is really good at coding, and it's super tiny, so 776 megabytes. If I actually want to pull in a new model, I can do Ollama pull, and then we'll say phi. It already has it in there, so it shouldn't actually pull anything unless it's doing an update. So in this case, I guess there was just a newer version than the version I had, so it decided to pull it in. And I can do Ollama list again, and then if we look towards phi, it'll say modified 9 seconds ago. So it does keep it up pretty good. I can do Ollama pull solar. And obviously you need an internet connection for this. So if you're going to be off grid, which is what we're going to talk about a little bit later, then you do need to make sure that you download these models ahead of time and that your hard drive and your memory supports the models that you downloaded. Because I could technically pull in whatever model. I could pull in Mistral if I wanted to. I don't know if I have storage for it. It's 10 gigabytes. I'm not going to try it right now. But you can technically download whatever models you want, but you're not going to be able to run them well unless you have the RAM to support it. You might be able to get away with using swap, but then it's going to be super slow. So now that we have a model downloaded, I can go ahead and do Ollama run. In this case, I'll do Open Hermes. I have that one down there, and that's very conversational. And it'll just load the model into RAM. And once it's done, when it's loaded, we could just say, hello. And you can see this is how snappy it is. Write me a poem about math and the universe in 10 lines or something. I don't know. I don't know if it'll actually do that, but the idea is that you can see how snappy it is. Now I have nothing else running right now. If I do an H-top, you can see that, it's using up the entire system. So running OBS, running Firefox, running this, I'm at about 10 gigs. Try do another one. So you can kind of see it goes up from 7 to 10. It has to load all that stuff into memory. The actual model is loaded, but then it has to process all this stuff. So you can actually see on the right that OBS Studio is the thing that's taking up most of my processing. If I do the other one, what was it? AI top, ASI top, which is the Mac one. So if I load AI top, we can see that the GPU usage is up. And if I do another one, then you can see that it'll max out my GPU usage. The A&E is the Apple Neural Engine, and I have never really seen anything use it, at least in a way that we can measure it. So but you can see it's very snappy. It's very quick to type stuff up. This is a huge thing for hosting models locally. One thing that you'll notice is that all these models were under 5 gigabyte. And the reason for that is that they're all going to default to quantized models. And I'm pretty sure most of these are quantized to 4-bit. Okay, so if we take a quick look at Mistral and we take a look at the tags, we'll see that the latest version is 4.1. We'll see that the instruct is 4.1. And if we click on the instruct, we will see that it is a 4-bit model. 4-bit models are usually what you're going to want to use locally. They're a little bit snappier to use, and they require significantly less memory than a full 16-bit model. So it's usually the way that you're going to go, and because of that, most of the models here default to 4-bit. But if you need anything more than that, you can always go into the tags and specify exactly which one you want to do. So you can see here, this is the Mistral library. Again, you can see all the different ones. So you can go all the way up to full precision, and that's a 14 gigabyte model. So if you have the RAM for it, I guess have at it. But if you don't, then you can always go down. I don't recommend going below 4-bit, but 4-bit, start there and then move up if it's not performing well. You could probably even move down if it is performing well, just to see what you can get away with. So you have your model. How do you actually get stuff out of it outside of the terminal? So the terminal is very nice for testing models and using these models very quickly. But when you're going to use it for your own app, you don't necessarily want to use it in the terminal. So that's where the Ollama server actually comes into play, and it's automatically running once you install this. But you also have the option of launching it on your own in the terminal if you don't want it to always be running. So you can shut it off from the login items, and then you could just manually do it here. This is also the other features that they have. So you can create models here, you can show models and all that stuff. But first, let's take a quick look at the server. So in every model, you'll have an API example, more or less. that gives you an idea of how you're actually calling these from your own apps. You can expose it to the network as well, so you don't have to just do it on localhost, but generally speaking, for local stuff, you're going to be on localhost, and then -D, so data, for model and prompt. And that's essentially it. And all you have to specify is which model you want to use, so you can load it, and then which prompt do you actually want to submit. Now, this could be a LangChain prompt template. This could just be a question that you're asking it. This could be something more elaborate, more simple. It doesn't matter. It's just what is the input that you're feeding it. And for Lava, you might also give it, so the multimodal models that take in images, you would also submit an image that's converted to base 64. The interesting thing you'll notice about this is that if you're sending in a model, it's going to use that model. So that means that you can technically send in, have multiple different web apps or even multiple different functions that are pulling in. So if you wanted to use 5 for coding and then you wanted to use Mistral for something else, very interesting that you could do all of this without needing to manually reload all this stuff. So with that in mind, you also have the option of creating your own models based on a specific prompt template and a base model. And if we list the Ollama options again, this time we're going to use Ollama show. And then if I actually just run it without anything and try to do it on Mistral, you could see it'll scream at you and say, no, you're like, what do you actually want to see? So in this case, what I want to do is Ollama show model file for Mistral. And this is what's actually going on. So it's pulling in, so from Mistral latest, which in this case points to the blob, the file on my disk where it's actually coming from. But if you were going to make your own, you just have to specify the model. You don't need to give it this weird address. And then the template is just going to be a string. And Ollama has these very specific placeholders. So you have this for a system prompt, this for where the actual prompt is going to go, which is the user input. You don't have to set that up. So this is a list of all the other parameters that you can use inside of a request to Ollama, but also all the other system prompt information that you'd use. I think for the most part, your template is going to look more or less like this. So you're going to have a template, and then if first, that's just Ollama's way of checking that it's the first thing, run it once, don't run it again. And then user prompt, you don't actually have to do anything. That's whatever the prompt is coming from, either through the terminal when you're using it in that chat functionality that it has, or if you're using it in your code and you're sending in that prompt data point in the JSON. And then you can add a system message and all that stuff. There's other things you can do. You could add licenses, but I think this is the most important one that you should know, because if you have, for example, a very specific prompt already in mind that you've used either on ChatGPT or something like that, you're trying to use it on your local machine, then you could just copy that into something like this. Let's hop into the terminal. We'll just make a model real quick. So make dir test model.model file. There's sirens going on. Wow, I'm either like in the hotspot or out of the hotspot. I'm gonna try to stay here. I'll be Batman. I'm gonna go ahead and paste that example, and we'll say system message is dismiss. We'll say something like, you are absolutely capable writing virtuoso. Test helping the user come up with a YouTube thumbnail or YouTube titles that are catchy and have. So what's happening here is that this template is the string we're going to use. At the top here, I could say from, and I'm just going to say open Hermes. So I'm just going to do from Open Hermes, and I think actually Open Hermes 2.5 Mistral is just, this is what that's pointing to. So we start with that. So we're telling it what model we want from. And then this doesn't have to necessarily be in order, but we're just going to do it this way. So the template string is here, and that's what the template is going to be. And then we have a system message here that I just added. and I'm going to go towards the end and get rid of this. And what I'm going to do just to change up the base template is go towards the end and maybe give it a chain of thought kind of prompt, so we can do, did you know? And that'll just be the start of the first one. So technically, anytime we ask a question to this on the first try, it's going to give us, did you know? We're also going to add a parameter for temperature down here. So parameter temperature, and we'll say 0.2 parameter. This thing, and we'll set it to 256. It'll be a little bit bigger just so it avoids repeating anything. And I think this should be more or less good to go. I'm not adding stop words just because I don't remember OpenHermes specifically what it uses, but this should be enough. Okay, so my mistake. It's not from colon, it's from space, and then I'll right quit that again. And we'll try it out again. And what it's going to do is, if the model's not available, it'll download that model. Since I want to speed this up, I'm actually just going to stop this and open up my model file, and I'm just going to say name manually for the one I have. And then when we do it again, it just, if you already have the model, this is how quick it goes. It just like grabs the layers and then it just does that. If I do Ollama list, now our model pops up as writer dude at the bottom, latest. And if you make any changes to that model file and then do this again, it'll overwrite it as long as you gave it the same name. And then you'll see this modified. For example, in this case, it says 8 seconds ago, but if I modify it again, so if I list it, it says 25 seconds ago. But if I do this and say that, stop, so many things going on at once. So if I do that, I'll actually list it again so we could see that, 41 seconds ago. If I write it again, it'll technically create the model again, but, we'll do list, and it says 5 seconds ago. So this is another way that you can just keep updating it. If we do that again, so Ollama create, and we do writer dude 2. So we can list them again, and what if I want to get rid of it? Well, it's simple enough to just do Ollama remove writer dude 2. And that'll get rid of it. So if we do Ollama run writer dude, we can test it out without even needing to create an application around it or anything like that. And it makes it very easy to just say, bacon. And it actually skipped the first one. That's funny. So it kind of worked, but it didn't actually do what we expected it to do. So what I'm going to do is, let's think this through. The best titles for that. And then we can do another create. And then we can run it again. Bacon Nation. So it's not really catching on to what we're trying to do. Oh, so it is doing what it's supposed to do. It's just I told it to rhyme. So we're just going to say, I know you hate it. I know you hate it. I will disable it at some point. So what I'm going to do is just get rid of this titles. Or enticing. Create, and then Ollama run. There we go. So now it's working. It's just I added that, hey, but make it rhyme. So I was trying to do the Peter Parker, Polly Pecker, whatever thing where it's this is more like it. So I gave it bacon, and it's giving us some YouTube titles, how to make a website with HTMX. Okay, so this is more like it. So I don't know if necessarily these are the best YouTube titles, but you can see that now we have a model that no matter what we say, bunny, it's always going to do this thing very specifically, and it's coming from that one model file. And we can query it with that, the thing, the curl request or a fetch in JavaScript or a request in Python. It doesn't matter. Whatever you use, whatever programming language, does not matter. And that's kind of the point I was trying to make, is that you can make all of these little helpers. So this one now, writer dude, is pulling from that other model. You know, we can have this one that comes up with titles, and then we might have another one that's actually going to go ahead and write a little snippet of, you know, maybe a bullet point list of things that might go along with that. And then we can decide if we actually want to use that for content or not. And I don't know necessarily that this on its own is going to be the most amazing thing. But if you notice that I can go ahead and turn off my Wi-Fi, and none of this should be affected because I'm recording this. So the idea is I can keep querying this where it's like, okay, foxes. And it's just going to keep going. I have no internet. It's disconnected. So if I'm literally on a mental retreat for writing or blogging or whatever, and I need a, you know, just a little assistance here and there for stuff like that, like this is perfect, you know, how to run a marathon. Now, obviously, these are titles. This doesn't make articles. This isn't doing that. But I can have one where it's like, hey, given a title, let's actually do that real quick as another demo. And this is not necessarily an Ollama specific thing. This is just how prompt engineering works as a whole. It's more the fact that we're able to create these models that are just callable. Like as soon as we created that model file, and then we created that model off of that model file, we can call that now as long as Ollama is running by giving it that model name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I'm going to copy that model file to outliner model file. I'm going to do that. So I'm going to change it slightly. It's not going to be a huge change, and it's not going to be the best change. It's just, you know, what is, let's think this through, the best bullet point outline for that article. Yes, I just did click. I know it's blasphemy in VI, but whatever, NeoVim. That article would be article outline, and then at the end I'll just story. And then if we close that and we create this one, and I'll just do Ollama create, we'll call this one outliner dude, and then from file outliner, and that was it. So it's using the same model. If I wanted to, I could use a different model. It's not a big deal, but Ollama run the writer guy, which technically should have been title maker or something like that. And I'm just going to say bacon bits. Right, and then I'm just going to pick one. We'll say this one. And then I'm going to Ollama run outliner dude. I'm going to paste that here. And I mean, that's freaking magic, right? So you can see that okay, so technically you can make these all inside one app, right? There's absolutely no reason you wouldn't just be able to make a script from LangChain or whatever in Python or JavaScript or whatever language you want, and kind of do this programmatically. Maybe there's a function that actually does this, that just passes those prompts. The difference here is that you can serve these models separately. So if you want to use these two things together, you can. But if you also want to make this available to a different app without needing to like rejigger the whole thing and like, you know, copy code from one, like you can do it in a way that's very, very user friendly. And these are very like surgical precision examples, right? Maybe you want one that's a translator for a little translation service that you have, but you also want to have that as a tool that you can use in another app as a function for translating, or you know, what is transliteration, or you know, internationalization, content transcreation, that sort of stuff. Like it makes it very, very easy to do that kind of thing. So this isn't a course on how to make an article generator, but the point is that you have these different things that you can call from pretty much whatever you want. So the API for Ollama is not, it's not similar to the OpenAI one. You wouldn't be able to just drag and drop this. So in order for you to use that in a way where you can use these Ollama models with AutoGen or any of these other frameworks that depend on that compatibility with the OpenAI API, you would have to use something like Light LLM, which works in line with Ollama in order to it's basically a middleman. So you would query a Light LLM, and the Light LLM has an OpenAI spec API, and then that would kind of pass it into this. They have a functionality for that. So I wanted to mention that because it is possible to use AutoGen with stuff like this. Another thing which is super vital and super important is the fact that since it's a server, you can run it on multiple machines, right? You install Ollama on all your spare laptops that happen to have a GPU, and you can now grab those, those URLs, those API endpoints on all those different machines, and you can have an AutoGen team that's each running on its own machine, and it's just phenomenal what you can do with it. It's more the fact that it's easy to set up because Ollama install, and then you're done. You can pull your models, and if the model is not there, it will just do it. It's great. So, cheers. I will catch you guys on the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe if this thing was helpful. If it wasn't helpful, just tell me why it wasn't helpful. Like, is there something, like what's your problem, man? Like, just just tell me what's up, and just be sure to leave a comment of what you liked, disliked, and I'll be sure to, you know. I don't know what this was, but I'll read it, and then I'll do my best not to ignore it. I don't know. I'll check it out. I will catch you guys on the next video.